right, we're live. Drummer Nation Live coming at you again. Michael Vosbaugh, your host, and my lovely and talented co-host, Adam Nussbaum. How are you, Adam? Good to see you again.
All right, Michael.
Let's
How are you doing?
get us out of that box. I'm doing well. Adam is in the wilds in North Carolina somewhere, I think. So if he freezes up or comes in and out, we're going with it because we're glad to have him here. How's everything?
Glad to be with you. Everything's nice. I've had a chance to visit some family that I haven't seen for quite a while. So that's always good for the soul. And
A-
it's very
Absolutely.
nice.
And you're headed to Nashville, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The other day I was in Nashville, and tomorrow I'm headed towards Nashville.
Right. I know that KHS is there. That's Sonar, right? Isn't that your endorsing company?
Yeah, KHS distributes quite a few manufacturers. They have Jupiter brass instruments. They have so many, and I can't even think of all of them, but they have Mapex and they have Sonar as well. So
Right.
they're
Y-
located in Mount Joliet, which is right outside of
Nashville.
Nashville.
There's a bunch. I mean, they call it Music City because of the music, but there's a lot of industry stuff there, man. Gibson's there, Pearl is
Absolutely.
there, all kinds of small companies. The Craviato's there now. Um, I'm blanking. Cooperman. I'm just trying to think of the drum companies, but there's tons of them. And
Wow.
it's a cool place. It's come a long way. Have you been there in a while?
I was there several months ago
Oh, okay.
in January, and I was there last year also.
Hmm.
It's ironic that last year was the first time I was ever in Nashville.
Oh, well, it's come a long
It
way,
was,
man.
oh, I bet. I mean, it seems to be a very fertile environment, and it was great to go to the different museums they had down there and
Hmm.
have some good barbecue.
That's right. The Country Music Hall of
Yeah,
Fame is there. It's amazing. The Skimmerhorn
yeah.
is their classical concert hall. It's new. It's just every time I go there, there's more going on downtown there. And of
There
course,
was a big museum of African American music down there that was incredible.
there's also a
So they're
Pickers.
covering a lot of bases.
Yeah, there's a Pickers Museum or a Players Museum too. I've never been to about not the stars, but the cats who did the tracks. And I
Right.
haven't been to it, but that's nice that they would do that. Anyway, we're going to cover some news of the day today on Adam's recommendation, which is a good one. And we have two big stories that hit close to home for all drummers. One is the good story, which is Roy Haynes, the great Roy Haynes, and we'll talk about him at length, turned 98 years old. God bless him. And the
Yeah.
negative story is Jim Gordon passed away at 77 from prison after being one of the greatest rock and roll drummers ever. He had some issues and ended up in jail. So let's start with the good stuff.
Yeah.
uh,
I mean,
here's
where
a
do you
nice.
begin with Roy Haynes?
Well, you can talk about that picture. Let's identify who that is. From left to right, you got Freddie Gruber. Joe Mosca,
Ray Muska, their wonderful drummer, was
hmm
very active around the New York scene.
and of
Then you have
course,
Roy there. Next
right.
is Steve Smith, the tall in the back, another great drummer, Bill Goodwin.
Yep.
Myself and the gentleman sitting down is a wonderful piano player, Junior Mance. And that was the occasion of, I believe it was Freddie Gruber's 80th birthday. We
Hmm.
all gathered at a restaurant in New York for Freddie. And for those of you that don't know about Freddie, Freddie was a very well known drum teacher. And he was primarily based out in California. And so working drummers got with him. And he really seemed to understand mechanics very well in regard to the instrument. And people that you would definitely know of that definitely became even better than they already were people like Dave Weckl, Steve Smith. These people would all give it up to Freddie. He just helped optimize what they could do as far as their facility. And
I
he
get
was very close friends with Buddy Rich and
Mel.
Philly Joe. So
Yeah.
he was able to hang out with these a lot. And you know what they say, you can observe a lot by watching.
That's another A bomb. Adam's
Yeah.
bombs. Uh, and Freddie was beloved in the industry, and he was absolutely a piece of work. But
Totally.
he was a
One in a
motion,
row.
one and only Freddie, and he was a motion poet, sort of. I mean, he would look at guys and talk about how they move at the kit, and tell them little cryptic things that would transform their lives.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
he,
I first met him through Mel Lewis, having heard of him quite a bunch. I
mhm,
got with Freddie a few times because I think we've all experienced those times where we feel like we're up against a wall and we want to break through that. And he was able to give me a little bit of insight, like you said, dropped a few words on me and showed me a few little things. I have not explored them to the extent that some other people have.
mhm.
It definitely helped me. And
Open.
Freddie's whole thing was you don't want to be muscling what you got to do. You want to try to eyes things as far as rebound, try to let things work and guide things more than making things work.
Mhm.
Because I think the key to longevity playing this instrument is to be as efficient as possible and not hurt yourself.
Mhm. And it was always cryptic too. Erskine tells a story about he starts dancing. He stands up and he's tap dancing. He says, "You get it? I'm not tapping. I'm not. I'm dancing over the floor. I'm not on the floor. I'm not beneath the floor. It's all about lift. You know."
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not
I
here to
mean,
talk about Freddie. God bless him. But Roy, let's talk about this gentleman here. If
I
I
mean,
can.
who on this planet has had more music go through his body than Roy Haynes?
Roy, for people who don't know, played
It's
with Bird. He came up in the early 40s,
well,
man.
he played with Louis Armstrong. He played
Yeah.
with Louis Russell in the early 40s. I mean, grew up in Roxbury, Massachusetts. You know, he's there in the Boston area, and I've always felt there's a certain character to the drummers that come from up there. Of course, you had Alan Dawson.
Mm-hmm.
You had people that everybody knows about, Tony Williams. There was Clifford Jarvis. There was a drummer named Bobby Ward, who's not that well known. Uh, there was Lenny Nelson, who's still around. There was a drummer up there, Ben Grant. There was another fine drummer up there, Jim Zatano. They got a there's a certain identifiable quality. You know, there's a lot of snap in what they do. It's a different sound. I think is inherent any of the different metropolitan areas around the country. I mean, it's very easy to hear when a drummer's coming out of New Orleans.
Absolutely.
They
That's a
got a
very good
certain
point.
character.
They sure do. And
Oh,
they used to say that about trumpet players in St. Louis. You know, Clark Terry and Miles
I
Davis. And but Roy was called Mr. Snap Crackle Pop or something, wasn't he? Because of his,
sure.
yeah.
I mean, you know, something that actually to tie this into Freddie Gruber, Freddie said something to me one time, and I think it's very true. Some drummers are signature identities, and then many are wonderful conglomerates. That's not taking anything away from wonderful conglomerates, but certain people, you hear them, and within one or two bars, you know who they are.
That's right.
They have a sound, They have a special vocabulary. They have a way of articulating what they do on the instrument, the way they react and respond.
Hmm.
And Roy was a signature drummer from the beginning. You can tell it's Roy Haynes' earliest recordings. A lot of people, it takes them many years to define themselves, and many conglomerates morph into signatures over time.
Right. But he had it from the get
So,
go.
yeah, and this is he, he's truly a one in a row, and somebody who's always sounded hip. You know, his one of his first bands was called the Roy Haynes Hip Ensemble,
That's right.
and you know, to think of somebody who played with Louis Armstrong, Lester Young, Charlie Parker, John
Hmm.
Coltrane, Sarah Vaughan, Thelonious Monk, Sonny Rollins, Johnny Griffin, you name it,
Yeah.
up to Chick Corea, Pat Metheny.
Right. And then, when I went to see, I saw him at a PASIC the last time he was at a PASIC. I never got to see anybody at PASIC because I had a booth, right? So unless I
Right,
was
right.
sponsoring the clinic, I didn't see it. But he was playing the concert. He was the headliner at the end. And I got my stuff packed up and I went to hear him and I was able to get backstage. And I was blown away, man. Now, he was in his 90s at this point, and he was playing stuff that was just scary. Stuff I'd never heard before, stuff that I don't know where it was coming from. It was just genius. And he was in his 90s.
Well, I saw him right before the pandemic. I don't know if I sent you a picture of him and I. I did post it on Facebook, wish him a happy birthday. And he and I were just laughing about something.
Yeah, I don't have that
But
here, but I know the picture.
yeah, it's what was incredible. You know, he's been getting 9 years and he's been dealing with the issues of what happens as you get older, if you want to call it Alzheimer's or dementia. And when he'd get done with a tune, he'd say to the guys, what should we play next? Because he wouldn't know what they just played or what they should play. But
Hmm.
while he was playing it, he was dead in there, totally in there.
Isn't that
And
something?
it was incredible. I think this is something that was also, if any of you out there saw the concert from Radio City, Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga.
I was just going to mention that. Because they were supposed to do 2 nights. Tony barely got through one, and she wasn't sure when she came out if he would even know who she was. But when the music started, he was flawless. He was perfect. He was right at home. He knew what he was doing, and off stage, they weren't sure he could even get through it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that some of those issues regarding, you know, some of the realities dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, it's almost like peeling an onion. You know, the things that are just happened, you don't remember, but the
Mm.
things that are deep in the cell and way down in your memory bank, you remember that stuff. You retain. I mean, the last thing Tony Bennett's going to forget how to do is sing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco." Last thing Roy Haynes is going to forget how to do is play, and it's
That's right.
very unfortunate that the pandemic happened, because I'm sure we would have been blessed to have him out there and doing stuff. I don't know if you know what's going on recently, because for 3 years everybody was just kind of put on pause, and I'm not sure we're going to see him come out again. But I mean, this gentleman has always been an example of somebody who had the amazing ability to hear so well and get deep inside
Hmm.
whatever the situation was.
Hmm.
You know, when you hear somebody, you want to hear somebody playing it. You don't want to hear them playing at it. And he has always had that innate ability. And what's incredible about Roy is, if you think about it, he's not somebody that has a very large vocabulary compared to somebody like a Max Roach or a Philly Joe Jones, but he always sounds hip. And the thing about Roy is, he has that unique ability of being able to accent or put any of his ideas kind of anywhere in the time that he wants. You know, if you have only one lick, but you can put it anywhere you want, start it anywhere, end it anywhere, depending on the tempo, you could have between or the feel. If you're playing more eighth note music, 16th, you could have 16 options. Playing more jazz, you got 12 options.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, you know, there's that old line I heard years ago. I saw Max do it. I saw Boo do it. I saw Philly do it. I saw Clute do it. But I seen Roy, and he did it and did it and did it and did it and did it. And I mean,
I was going to mention that
this,
line. Yeah.
yeah,
But people need
he's
to know that that's part of his playing. That was a lick that did it and did it, did it, did it, did it, did it.
absolutely.
It was part of his unique vocabulary that a lot of drummers cop.
Yeah.
And it's also a funny joke.
Yeah, and the way, to me, it's like Roy is always dancing over the pulse is so innately inside of him. When he's playing, he's always dancing around it. It's not like he's slugging out quarter notes and slugging things out. He's just dancing about it, so it has a lift and a certain quality to it that's fascinating. I mean, it's interesting if you go out and you hear different versions of Coltrane playing My Favorite Things, which primarily was Elvin. And when Elvin was unavailable at certain times, Roy was the main sub. And to hear his way of approaching it is wonderful. It's equally great in a different way. And it also makes Coltrane play different. Because Roy's sound is more open and lighter. Elvin's sound was a more darker and heavy. So what I find interesting is it brings out another aspect of what Coltrane was doing, which also shows people that have that incredible adaptability. I mean, when you hear Miles Davis with John Coltrane, Coltrane is the heat, Miles is the cool.
Right.
When you hear Miles Davis with Hank Mobley, Hank is the cool, Miles plays the hot. You know, to create that balance.
Well, the greats can find a place that they fit in, that their voice fits in with everything else. And when you think about Roy and working with, you know, Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, that's a long time ago. Yet he's really maybe best known for Now He Sings, Now He Sobs, the great Chick Corea album, which is very modern. And he just kills it. And of course, he's got that feisty flat ride that everybody loves. That's been tried to be copied over and over again. But you and I know that the cymbal is only one thing. I think you said it's the painter, not the brush, right?
Yeah. I mean, but that record, I think, is essential listening for anybody that's serious about this instrument. And just to hear how they react and interact. And to me, the greatest musicians are the people that hear the best.
Yeah,
not just
it's more about listening
how
than
you
playing,
can
right?
react. Yeah, how you can react and respond to what's happening in the moment. And this is a process that you want to, which has to be developed by doing it. You can't practice it by yourself. It just, so when you got Roy Haynes sitting there, you've got somebody who, you know, he practically played at the Last Supper. So, I mean, you know, how much more music do you want? You know, the new kid on the block, he's not going to know jack compared to what this guy knows. He forgot more than what most people know. Now, that's a great picture, because that's a picture of a young Roy Haynes. I think that picture is from like 1949 with a young Sonny Rollins.
Right. And who's the bass player?
From I think the bass player, I can't really see it.
I can't see.
But I know there was a record date that was done for Blue Note, a Bud Powell record date. Bud Powell, the great trumpet player Fats Navarro. It's, I can't tell who it is, but I'd assume it was either Tommy Potter or Curly Russell. They were very prevalent at that time.
Good guesses, yeah. Here's another picture.
Yeah, that's a little later on. That's the great piano player Bud Powell
Hmm.
with Roy. I
Wow.
mean, these were, Bud Powell was one of the seminal figures of the bebop era, along with Dizzy, Charlie Parker, Kenny Clark,
Hmm.
Max,
Hmm. One of the true
Monk.
pioneers. Yes.
Oh yeah, these were true pioneers. That picture looks like it was taken at a gig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people used to say, "Oh, Bud Powell was the Charlie Parker of the piano," but then other people said, "No, Bird was the Bud Powell of the saxophone." So
Yeah.
Bud
Well,
was very heavy.
usually, well, very, yeah, very. There's a story where Peter Erskine, let's get this right, Joe LaBarbera and Jeff Hamilton were having lunch, and they're talking about. Let me get back to us, and they're talking about they all had played a club, Montmartre, in Europe, and it was like, okay, Jeff, who'd you play there with? Well, he played with Oscar Peterson. Oh wow, okay. Joe, who'd you play there with? Well, he played with Bill Evans. And Roy McCurdy was the first, the other person there. I'm sorry. Roy said, "Yeah, I played there too." They said, "Who'd you play with?" He said, "Bud Powell." And Joe said it got real quiet after that
Yeah.
because
Now,
it's
now
freaking Bud Powell, even though they had
Bud,
played there with Bill Evans and Oscar Peterson.
I mean, Bud Powell also was dealing with a lot of mental issues,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was very fortunate. I got to play with a great Danish bass player whose name was Nils Henning Orsted Pedersen,
Sure, yeah.
and known as NHOP. And when he was 15 or 16, he was working gigs, And
Mm,
he told me he was playing gigs with Bud Powell, and Bud would finish a tune, and then he'd say, "Let's play." They played Bouncing with Bud, and then when they were done, he would look at him and go, "Let's play Bouncing with Bud." It was like, "Wait, Bud,
we
we
just
just
played.
played that." Oh,
Poor
okay.
guy.
And then he'd play something else, but
Yeah.
it was just phenomenal to just the abilities that people have. Crazy and genius have a very
Thin
close
line.
knit band.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thin line. All right.
Yeah.
Roy was also known for his sartorial excellence.
Oh man, he was in Esquire magazine. I think several times as one of the 10 best dressed men. He always had some style and grace. This guy,
Always hip, always clean. Yeah,
you
look at
name it.
that.
Yeah,
Look at
yeah.
that, man. Look at that cat. All right, here's a few more. Let's go to Roy with Elvin.
Well, yeah,
There you go.
that's a great picture. And Alvin would be the first one to say, that he was influenced by Roy Haynes
Mm-hmm.
along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, Roy was 98, so he was born in 25. Elvin was born in 27. He's a little younger.
Okay. They were
But
certainly contemporary.
you could just see the love
Absolutely.
with these guys.
Yeah. Wonderful drummers. All right. World class heavyweights. Now, who do we have here?
There's another from left to right, Billy Higgins. I
Yeah.
mean, there's another man with a magical sound.
We talked about
Roy
him
Elvin
recently. Roy Elvin. Go
and
ahead.
Charles Wood.
Charles Wood.
That's Charles Wood with the hat on and the shades
Okay.
on the right.
I don't know him. What's his thing?
No, Charles Lloyd, a great
Oh, Charles
saxophonist.
Lloyd. I thought you said Charles Wood. Yeah, I know who Charles Lloyd is.
No,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I
Sorry
mean,
about
for
that.
those of you that aren't familiar with Charles Lloyd, his one of his first working bands that was very popular had Keith Jarrett,
Mm,
Cecil McBee, then Ron McClure, and Jack DeJohnette.
yeah.
And there's some wonderful. That was a great band.
Yeah. You're not kidding. You're not kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Roy, we hope you make it to 100 and points further north. He's
Yeah,
an American
he's
treasure.
somebody. Yeah, he is truly a one in a row treasure. And for those of you that haven't checked him out, I'd say there's, now with YouTube, you can access most anything. There's
Mm-hmm.
great live recordings with Dizzy, Charlie Parker, and Bud Powell from radio broadcasts. You can hear
Mm-hmm.
Symphony Sid going, I thought that was going to be Max. Thinking it
I
was
haven't heard that.
Max Roach, and it was Roy. And there's so many great recordings with this gentleman. There's a great record with Sonny Rollins, The
Mm-hmm.
Sound of Sonny. Man, I mean, you can't even but you got to check him out. You got to check this guy out because
Required
just
listening.
the way he's one of those people that's necessary to at least be aware.
Absolutely. All right, let's go a
Yeah.
different direction now. Not as positive. Jim Gordon passed away a week or so ago at 77. He had been in prison for decades. And Jimmy, let's hear your thoughts on Jim.
Well, Jim Gordon, the only thing I can say is he's finally at peace. This was one of the drummers who was pretty much initially he came on this in California as a protege of Hal Blaine, and he was involved with so many recordings. And I mean, we probably heard him on a million records, and we didn't know it was him. He was on Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. He was on recordings by Bread, played with Cher, The Carpenters, Judy Collins, talking about that zone, Donovan, Art Garfunkel, Carole King, Dave Mason, Maria Moldauer, Randy Newman, Harry Nilsson, Yoko Ono, Righteous Brothers. Then you go, and he was out hitting with B.B. King, Derek and the Dominoes, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joe Cocker, Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce. I mean, he was in there. And this guy always seemed to play something that was in the music and work, man. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible. I got to see him twice. I heard him with Delaney and Bonnie at Central Park at Wallman Rink. They used to have the Schaefer Music Festival, and they would have in the summer 2 bands every night, and it was $2. So I saw Seals and Crofts and Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, and it was pretty much the same band that was on that record, but it wasn't Eric Clapton that night. It was Duane Allman playing with them, which was pretty great. And then I heard him with Derek and the Dominoes. And what was interesting was reading something that Eric Clapton thought that he said, man, Jim Gordon was the best rock drummer I ever heard.
Yeah, and he played with some great rock and roll drummers.
I mean, but this cat also did other projects where he could play, he could do like anything, this guy. But he really had that consistency that people like when you're doing a lot of studio work. He had great time. He had a great feel. And his fills were always in the feel of the groove he was playing. So the fills never tuck away from the feel and the groove. And to play so sensitively somebody like Judy Collins, and then to be hitting with Mad Dogs and Englishmen or a big band with 12, 15 people and nailing it and getting a great sound. People talk about the guys that do great studio work. Their sound is so consistent. They record so great. You watch the meter, the bass drum goes to the same spot every time. The snare drum goes to the same place. He had that kind of mastery with a great feel and also just an intuitive sense of what's going to make this thing rock.
Yeah. Well, we have an example I'm going to play that's online. it's hard to get music across through these channels because you get busted by the sound police. But this is a drum track, isolated drum track, so I
Right.
don't think anything's going to pick that up and bounce us out.
Okay.
Let's see if we can hear some of this.
Great.
And this is just an isolated drum track from a George Harrison thing. So you're mostly going to hear drums. Listen to that, man. Man, that's on fire. Okay, I'm going to turn that down now and go back to you and me. But as soon as I can get us there. Well, there's me. Let me get out of this thing here.
Wow.
Okay. I'm trying to do all my own switching and it gets crazy. Wow, right? What a track.
I mean, no prisoners, no BS, just way in there. And, no Neanderthal, man. This is like, there's no questions here.
Right. Everything is spot on. It's strong, but it's also sensitive. Got those times where he's playing half the high, just little nuances in there, ghosted notes, but everything he hits is just solid, man. Spot on.
There's that sense of totally orchestrating a little section of tune.
Right. And
he's spontaneously arranged, orchestrating. You couldn't write out a part better than what he's playing.
Right. And
that's why you see certain people on a lot of records. There was a great article somewhere where Andy Newmark was playing with somebody and recording one. I can't remember who it was. Might have been Carl Lyman or something. But he just wasn't getting the track together. So the producer brought in Jim Gordon, and who's a real drummer himself.
You're breaking up a little bit. Let's back up on that. I'm not getting your sound. You're frozen. Well, these things happen. We'll see while Adam tries to get back in here. I'll tell you the rest of the story that was so sad is that Jim Gordon had alcoholism, drug addiction, mental illness. He was hearing voices, and eventually he killed his mother, and he went to prison for the rest of his life. So that's the tragic side of it. But we focus here on the artistic side of it, which was genius. So Whoops. Oh, Adam's out. Okay, we'll go back to me solo. There we go. So, we covered what we wanted to cover. Let's see if I'll give Adam another minute to get back in. We're 36 minutes in. But the 98th birthday of Roy Haynes, amazing drummer, and another amazing drummer with a difficult story, the passing of Jim Gordon at 77. Okay, well, we've completed the show. I don't want to lock Adam out. Let's have a commercial here.
Hi, I'm Stan Chiawa, and welcome to the Professional Drum Shop. 1959 it opened up. Here we have Buddy Rich's, the last set he ever played. Last gig he played with Mel Torme at the Palladium. I set it up for him. One of the most iconic pictures is this one. Joe Morello Clinic around 1963. Mr. Hal Blaine, good friends of the store for decades.
The stories that go on, I mean, if these walls could talk, holy mackerel, we'd all go to jail.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bobby A, and today I wanted to tell you about how much I really love the Hudson Music digital app. Okay, now, check it out. It's an app that you can get for your device, and you can purchase books from the Hudson Music digital store and have them stored right on your device. The great thing about it is you always have it with you, and any content that might be video related or music related is right there at your fingertips. It's a wonderful resource.
All right. Adam's back.
I'm back.
Just can't get rid of you. I was
I
telling
thought
the
I was just
I was telling everybody we had covered most of this, but I'm sure you have a little more to say about Jim Gordon. You saw him a couple of times?
Yeah, I saw him. I told you I saw him at the Walmart in Central Park for Music Festival for $2.
You were young though, right? Didn't he go away a long time ago?
Around, this was probably 15. It was probably, or maybe 71 too. I might have been a little before that.
Yeah.
And then I saw him at the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York, which was great because he had the same acts that the Fillmore East would have. So they'd have maybe 2 acts a night. And as a kid, I was growing up in Norwalk, Connecticut, so I could take the train or walk right to Port Chester. The theater was right practically a street from the train station. So that was pretty great. And he was playing with Derek and the Dominoes. And there was another band that played there that was called Hammer, Hammer. And one record on Bill Graham, I think it was San Francisco Records, and they were also fantastic. And that record, Gary, another great drummer. I can't remember who played live, but the thing I do remember that night, good as Derek and the Dominoes sounded, the guitar player from Hammer really smoked. His name was Jack O'Brien. I don't know what happened with this guy, but he really was. I remembered him more than Clapton's playing that night.
Wow.
You never know what's going to happen.
Well, back to Jim in his playing, you hear certainly Hal Blaine's influence, and you hear the people who came later. He was a giant influence on Keltner, and you can hear Gadd stuff in there. I mean, he kind of sits right in the middle to me between Hal Blaine and Steve Gadd.
Well, him and Hitler were kind of and I think they traded off a lot of different gigs at one time or another.
You said Keltner? You broke up there for a second.
Jim Keltner and Jim, right. I think, were pretty much contemporaries.
Yes, they were, but
And Jim Gordon was a big one. Some poor cat.
Yeah. All right,
and
man.
There were so many. Garen, that's another great.
Oh, Johnny Guerin. Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's another one in that style. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, these guys could cover a lot of territory and be, the term I like to use is they're playing it. They're not playing at it.
Right.
And it's something you can really, and the story I wanted to say was he knew Mark, and if he could get in the booth and watch him cut this track. And the producer was somebody who just was notorious for wanting multiple takes. And he said, Jim would hit the snare drum in the same place every time, no variance, the groove, the sound, the consistency on all levels.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was like a great lesson, which is something that happens when you get to sit next to masters do their thing. You get a lesson.
Absolutely.
They don't have to tell you what they're doing. If you got your ears open, you can hear it and see it. And
it's right in front of you, man.
Yeah, pictures worth 1,000 words. And, there's no substitute for being in the room. And, thank God we have this medium now where we can talk to people all around the world. But, for those of you drummers out there that haven't been out and listening to live music, go, if any of the elders are ever around, go see the oldest guys first.
Right. I'm happy to say I've seen all the great jazz legends and drum legends for all styles that I've been able to see in my lifetime. I rarely would I pass up an opportunity to hear a great drummer. And
you have to do it.
Goes
you
without
have to
saying.
do it. There's no substitute.
Yeah.
No substitute for being in the room and feeling it, feeling the air move. Just there's nothing like it.
Especially a small room close to the drums, man. Right over their left shoulder.
Right. If you have, for me, I think it was the Village Vanguard, just sitting in that corner of the room, man.
We all know that spot, man. There's a little booth in the Village Vanguard, a little spot right behind the drummer, man. You're like right over his left shoulder. And like when I say right there, I mean 2 feet, 3 feet.
Yeah, you can grab the hi-hat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right there, man. You could go to the Vanguard and hear the greatest drummers in the world and sit right in their laps almost.
Yeah, yeah. And it's always great if you get to hear people more than one night.
Mm-hmm. Which clubs can offer.
You go to the openings night, and then you go to the last set on the Sunday night after they've set for the week. And it's just fascinating. And I strongly recommend it because it's another going to be utilizing besides just listening and seeing. You're going to feel something.
Yep, it's going to hit you in the gut, man. It's going to hit you like right there. And if it doesn't, you're probably playing the wrong instrument.
Yeah, it's wonderful that we have these tools at our disposal, and I'm thankful I'm able to check out people that I wasn't able to see.
Real, yeah, me too. Right. Yeah, you can
still,
go back and see the ones who predate us. You can find them, and I recommend that people do. Yeah, yeah. All right, Adam, I think we've covered it, man. We're 45 minutes in. That's about where we want to be, and it's been a good show about Roy and Jim, and your observations are always killing. What else you got? Anything else?
I'm just trying to pass on what little bits I've been able to gather through my experiences, and I have a lot of attitude and a lot of good for you doing it. And yippee-i-o-ki-yay, everybody stay on the good foot, stay on the sunny side of the street. And you drummers out there, play with people, because you got to get this happening.
Pandemic's over, man. Pandemic's over. There's no excuse to just be in your room. That's cool. We all learn from that, but you got to play it with people. That's what it's all about. Now is a good time to get out and do it.
Amen. The weather's getting nice. The blossoms are coming in the trees. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. Michael, thank you, sir.
You're most welcome, and thank you. And I'm going to get to the closing credits here. Thanks again, Adam. Thank you, everyone. We do in this spot every couple of weeks. We're not on any religious schedule, but keep an eye out and go to the YouTube channel and please hit the subscribe button. And you go to the website and sign up for the mailing list. And then we're on Facebook and YouTube and podcast, wherever fine podcasts are. And I thank Adam Nussbaum, and we'll be at you again real soon. Let me find my way out of here. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adam.
Aloha.